Welcome to partialarc.com. Don't do that.
You find yourself in a tavern.
Yo, we should have checked for traps.
I knew he forgot something.
I think I can reason with him.
You killed his father.
Can I have sex with it?
You could certainly try.
I'm gonna touch a sword.
Don't touch the sword!
The child is evil, right?
Obviously.
I could cast Fireball.
Always cast fireball.
All right, roll for it. Welcome to Friday Night Quests. I'm your host and Dungeon Master, Jay Jones. We're back with our special bonus Aftermath episode for Season 12. Our adventure with Seychelle Gabriel from The Legend of Korra and Falling Skies. First, we'll chat with the cast and talk to Seychelle about what it was like returning to D&D for the second time. Then I'll sit down with fellow producers Mike Christensen and Andrew Dickinger, and we'll talk about the design of this adventure. So without further ado, let's get to our conversation with the cast. Thank you guys for playing. This was the second part of running into Slotty.
Oh, brother.
Does anyone actually know what that stone was that was in the center of the room?
I
Does
don't
anyone
remember
suspect?
what it's called, but
Is it an artifact?
It is not an artifact, but it is called the Spawning Stone.
Oh.
Slotty actually spawned from it.
Oh.
I had a feeling that they would crawl out of the stone.
I kind of had a visual of I think there's a
Stargate.
that building in London that kind of looks like a crystal egg.
Yes,
That's what
actually very good. Yeah, because it's geometric all over it.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I was thinking.
It's actually a very good way to imagine it.
yeah,
Yes.
because it was built by Modrons, by Primus.
Well, Primus created it, and Modrons lived in limbo. Actually, the Slotty, when they were birthed from the Spawning Stone, killed all of the Modrons in limbo. So it's just Githzeri and Slotty
I like that
in
word,
the universe.
Githzeri.
It's a good name, yeah.
So
That's why his name was Gary.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was
Or was
short.
You will have a name similar to the Githzeri, Gary.
So what'd you think of coming back to D&D?
It was super fun. It was fun having more spells and the 5th level spells, and to just be more familiar with it, and just to see the characters again and to step back into Zereni. And I think just for her to have had more on her to have lived through, and
Yeah, you lived.
yeah, I lived through the 5 years.
I like to think you guys are almost superstitious for her now, because every time you guys have showed up into her life, something horrible has happened.
Oh God!
for all
If
of you.
if you come back, I'm gonna expect Slotty.
They follow her
Slotty.
around.
This
To be
only-
fair, that's true of just about everyone we meet.
that's kind of what we do.
Everyone we meet, it's just oh, hey, how's it going? Oh, God, demons. Oh, God.
It's particularly good for a sage who just spends all her time indoors.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
needs a little some of this, I think.
Just
so.
shake her up a little.
And I do, so it was good.
Yeah.
And I kept being reminded of, do you guys know the Modern Lovers, the band? That song called The Astral Plane?
Oh yeah.
The Astral Plane. Oh my gosh, I'm just
Yeah, they're
running through my
D&D
head the
nerds.
entire adventure.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Do they have Githyanki lines in there?
Yeah.
Sometimes you find dragons and also Githyanki.
There should be a D&D version of that song, and maybe I'll make it. Actually.
Yeah, you
Please do. What is, out of all the things from Zereni, what was your favorite spell that you have,
My favorite spell. Well,
and why?
that's a really good
You didn't really get to
question.
use the spell you really
I mean,
wanted
does it
to
have to
use.
be a spell that I use?
It can be either one.
Just got a long list of
I have
spells.
There's a lot of spells in there.
spells.
Does anyone else, while she's looking, have a favorite spell of either a current character or a past character ever? I've
I've
ever
always
used?
liked the floating disc. What is it? Venser's floating disc?
Tensor's floating disc,
floating
yeah.
disc. I
Yeah.
like that one. Because I think it's both absurd and super useful.
What
It
does
is.
it do?
Makes a floating
a
disc.
It makes something you can
Oh,
just
that you
carry
can just stand
stuff on. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
But you can also do really creative things with it, like plug holes, fly on it. You
Oh,
can
yeah.
get on it yourself and fly around.
It's pretty awesome.
It's not a power my character has, but Reincarnate is my favorite spell in 5th edition D&D by far.
And you've experienced it twice now.
I've experienced it also from the DM side in my home games. So
Oh, okay.
it's a fun spell and I like it a lot. As for the ones I have, I didn't get to show it off in this game, but Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion is a fun one because I basically make a TARDIS.
That's cool.
That's fun.
You can
Cool
fill it with
name.
tons of rooms and different things, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's pretty amazing.
Wait,
neat.
what is it? You make a mansion?
I make a door, and inside that door is a mansion, which exists in its own dimension.
That's so cool.
And it can have anything inside. Like it has fake servants and stuff in there.
It has 100 invisible or 100 spectral servants. Yeah.
That's awesome. 100. Not a small amount of servants.
wow.
Everybody gather up. We're going to listen to me sing now.
I'm going to play human chess. My servants versus your servants. Battle.
Cast the spell just to have them listen to you sing.
You could play human Chinese checkers with that.
You could. You could have a concert every night.
Now's the time. Now's the time for you to clap, idiots.
Yay! Ha 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 ha. You are so funny. So funny. Did you find which one you like?
I think I'm gonna go. I have one from one I used and one from one I didn't use. Banishment. I think just because I could hit 2 at once, so I feel extra powerful, and
True.
also I just like the whole idea of sending someone to just a completely
different plane of
and I
existence.
didn't really know about the planes of D&D until today, and you guys showed me those charts, and I didn't know about all those levels, so that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Neither did I.
But I had Phantasmal Force too, which is really cool because you can like create an illusion for a character where they can, like they can see a bridge and they go over it, but it's not there.
Oh, they just think it's something.
Yeah, or you can like say that there's a fire or something, and they can actually get like burn damage from. It's really interesting. There's lots of different kinds of
wow.
damages. Well, that's
And the funny thing too is if it like falls through the bridge, their brain rationalizes like, oh, the bridge must have broken that one section.
Yeah.
Like their brain
Right.
fills in the details.
Interesting.
Like if you were in love with Bill, you could make yourself look like a tree.
yeah,
There
Sure.
we go.
Yeah, I could
right.
do that without a spell though, because I didn't take advantage of that as much. But I have the Mask of the Wild.
Oh, so you can become a tree.
Yeah, I can
Oh.
Whoa,
be
that's
lightly
pretty cool.
obscured.
Wow.
by
She can
foliage.
camouflage, yeah.
Well, maybe
That's
you and
pretty
Bill
amazing.
will have a future.
Who is Bill?
Bill's the tree fucker.
Oh,
Tree fucker.
Yep, tree fucker.
Woodpecker.
Every town has one.
Do they?
Is there a Bill in everyone? We just haven't
Fact,
seen
Los
it.
Angeles has like 100.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a different
It's like
story.
one every block.
There was a woman who did like marry the Eiffel Tower.
Or
Wait, really?
Yeah, and she like tried to make love with it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
This is the real story.
There's people that fuck cars.
She married the Eiffel Tower.
And then the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I heard about that one. Yep.
Who officiated that wedding?
Who signs the marriage
That I don't
certificate?
know.
Al Sharpton.
Go to the courthouse and they're like, all right, you're getting married too. Congratulations, by the way. Is this the Golden Gate Bridge?
Yeah, I don't really get
Yeah, it
along with
is.
the Bridges family. But,
Yeah, but you know.
Be like an unorthodox vow situation.
Oh, the Bridge is Jewish, I've heard. Yeah,
Oh, Mazel.
I had to
Wow.
convert.
So I haven't gotten to use it yet, but I think my favorite spell is going to be True Resurrection just because it's so gnarly. Like, I could pick up a bone of something
And just bring it back to life.
And
That's
how
cool.
long does it have to have been dead for?
200 years.
Yep.
Wow.
Like, I can go to
Wow.
grandma's grave
Yep.
and be like,
Like grandma's back now.
bring grandma. But my favorite like comment is I just love Moonbeam because it's so Sailor Moonish.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like the visual of that.
And I like it because it's also aligned because Izzy's the circle of the moon, so it's very a spell that's close and dear to her heart. But frick, True Resurrection.
That reminds me of that Disney Channel original movie with Tyra Banks, where I think it was Lindsay Lohan. Maybe.
Oh, is the model?
Yeah, where she takes she wants to bring her mom back to life, but she finds the hair on the brush and it's the Barbie's hair, and then the Barbie comes back to life.
Whoa,
Taking
what?
Taking
Yes.
it way back. Yes.
Yeah.
I forgot about that until right
It's
now.
always
so thank
called
you.
like life size.
Yes.
Something like that. Yeah.
And that's when we all realized the Barbies used to be alive and they
Yeah.
killed them.
Yeah. That was how we got the dolls. They cut them up and carved
Yeah.
them
Banished
into
them.
dolls.
So dark that we realized they've been killing Barbies
in
forever.
ancient times,
was gonna
Barbies
say,
were
why didn't you
full
just-
size.
Deeply unsettling.
Very dark. Used resurrection and the Barbie came back to life, which means, oh my god.
Starring Tyra Banks and Lindsay Lohan.
I totally forgot there was Lindsay Lohan in that movie.
I forgot about that too.
Was that when she was still like young and precious?
Yeah, like when she
Yeah.
did.
It's like Freaky
Parent
Friday
Trap.
era,
Yeah.
Was it called Parent Trap?
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
it
they
was,
did the
right?
remake of the Parent Trap.
Oh, it was just the remake. That's
Yeah.
right. She played
And-
both sisters.
And
Yeah, that was
Freaky
a good-
Friday, right? She
That
was
was-
also
yeah.
Freaky Friday.
Wow. All right, guys. Well, thank you for sharing your favorite spells.
Thanks for coming, Seychelle.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, I'm sitting here with the producers. We've got Jay Jones, our illustrious dungeon master.
Hey, everybody.
and Andrew Dickinger are off to Lufstead after, also producer.
Hello.
Niels just got off a plane
From Norway.
so he was meant to be.
Boy, are his arms tired. Am I right, guys?
Waka. No, just the rest of him is very, very tired.
Yeah, all of him's very tired.
So
So he's in the corner comatose. We'll wave at him.
Yeah,
Hello,
no,
Nick.
he's here in the room because we don't take no for an answer. Nick, how you doing over there? Awesome.
Yeah,
Foam.
that looks bad.
Foam out the mouth.
Yeah, perfect. Maybe we shouldn't have just shoved him full of sleeping medication. That probably didn't help.
What? That's what all doctors do.
We'll check on him tomorrow. So we're talking about season 12. Yeah, season 12,
Good one.
where Seychelle Gabriel came back to the show.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
let's begin by talking about how that came together, because initially we knew this was going to be the adventure where we came back to Izzy's home. Because we've been going in that direction ever since season 10. We've been heading in that trajectory. And we knew there was the issue of the moondrop lilies.
Yep.
So we thought it would be interesting to bring back Seychelle for the sort of culmination, or at least at the very least revisiting
A bit of a bookend to part of that story of the Moondrop Lily.
because she was there when we established it in season 5.
Because obviously there's still more going on there, but it was a nice bookend to the involvement of like Sladi and the Moondrop Lily and like the relationship there. And it just made sense to have her back because she was there at the beginning when we first introduced this plant that has become kind of a linchpin part of the overarching story of the Velvet League.
Yeah. And to what degree its relevance is, we are only still learning. But it was kind of appropriate to have her back for this sort of reunion moment. And I didn't think we'd actually be seeing more Sladi, and we saw just a bunch of Sladi.
Well, it's funny that you actually say that, because Jay and I were talking about it, and we were like, maybe it shouldn't just be like super obviously Slotty right off the bat, because it was just like more Moondrop Lilies. It's probably just going to be Slotty, and then we thought about that and like played it out in our brains, and we're like, they're just going to immediately make that connection. And Jay was like, I'm going to have it things pretending that they're not Slotty, and I was like, that'll throw them for a loop.
Yeah.
It definitely did. Because I was like, yeah, Izzy definitely used detect or dispel magic, and then she did, and it was a Slotty, and I was just like, oh no, we were unprepared.
And also the trees attacking. There was trying to be like a little bit of a misdirection there.
There definitely was, and it was not clear initially, like, okay, what's going on? Because usually when we get somewhere, it's like blood in the water, follow the trail, and here it was like, okay, well, Izzy's dad is gone, is that the plot? And also there's trees attacking. Maybe that's what you guys should worry about. And then, by the way, there's this guy on this cart. Just heads up, that's a guy on a cart, and just like, okay.
The DM only like drew very serious attention to this cart rolling up, with a soldier on the front. He described everything about it.
Possible infection, maybe not.
Well, then it led us to like, okay, we had to investigate which one did we want to investigate, and obviously it turned out the trees and the Slotty were related. Izzy's father, a different storyline, which we'll get to.
And I very much meant that to be like a side note, to be like, yeah, he's not here. Like, basically, he's not here for this adventure.
Well, I
and then it became very much like, well, guys, we got to go to the Underdark now. And it's like, oh, no. I didn't expect that reaction.
Well, I think you told Kelly, right?
I did. I told Kelly ahead of time. Like, so just to kind of pull back the veil a little bit, I don't really tell you guys anything. Even you, Mike.
That's true.
Barely really. I'll say, like, you guys are going to be in, like, a snowy area, and that's about it.
Well, unless there's, like, specific character, like, it's your home, you would know about it.
So, like, we've had Jeremy on here in an Aftermath where we talked about how, like, I basically went to him and said, tell me about Bahamutness, and tell me about your home. And that's very much integrated into the story. Just like here for Izzy's hometown, I sat down with Kelly, and I was like, Kelly, tell me about your hometown. What are the people like? What is the area like? What is the nature and the flora and the fauna like? And she kind of downloaded her idea of this place, and I kind of ran it through the filter of Slotty and Moondrop Lilies, and that's how we got this adventure. So, but even then, it was still very much I wanted to give her a heads up that, like, hey, your dad's not going to be here, so just know that your mom might be here, but your dad will not be here. So I think if you go back and you listen to the adventure, you'll hear many parts where Kelly, who plays Izzy, is constantly saying, like, guys, it doesn't matter. It's fine. Like, my dad's fine. Like, well, let's deal with these tree things.
Yeah, because Jeremy was just like, well, we got to find Ron. I was like, well, I mean, we can try.
And it was definitely, I think there was a point where we were like episode 4, and like everybody was still kind of like, yeah, so we're on our way to the Underdark to get Ron. It's like, guys, that's not gonna, the Underdark isn't like the last 30 minutes of this adventure.
Yeah.
Oh, look, the Underdark, and there's Ron. All right, well, nice to meet you, Ron. Tell us all the exposition you can about the Moondrop Lily. Great, good adventure, everyone.
Well, I also imagine it wouldn't be the setup of there's a cave. Well, that's an awfully convenient entrance straight to the Underdark.
The Underdark's just adjacent. It's about a 30-minute walk.
You never know.
No, I did.
You do. I mean, you never do know.
I mean, one of my favorite parts was definitely the setup of the trees, because Jay and I were talking about that, and we were like, I really didn't know how they were going to react to the trees. I assumed that they were just going to immediately start burning trees down, because they're like, well, we can't have trees attacking people, because that's bad.
Bad for business.
But like to make that step to investigate, oh, they're only attacking the sick people. That kind of makes sense.
Which it took us a while to get to.
Well, there was a lot of codpiece stuff going on.
Sure.
There's a lot of codpiece investigation.
And when you write an adventure of Friday Night Quests, you do leave like a little block of window of just like, and then they go to town.
For codpieces?
See you guys in 30 minutes.
There's always like, when I'm writing my notes, because I very much write out a lot of details, and just I have papers and papers for the day of, and there's always like the opening is just like a small paragraph of just like a quick descriptors of like what the place looks like and what's going on.
Had like 2 NPCs.
And like, yeah, just like maybe 1 or 2 people I have planned for. And then sure enough, we have invented multiple people.
Yeah.
Multiple.
There's a bathhouse.
There's a bathhouse. There's several characters working in that bathhouse.
Was the bathhouse planned?
No, absolutely not. That was
No,
just a
we
casual thing that she said.
We
And
asked
that
about
was
a bath,
That was
and-
even a different adventure, but yes.
I know, but
But even then, that was just like, oh yeah, there's a bath out there. And it's like, ooh, let's spend the entire hour in the bath. And I was like, jeez, okay, here we go. Bathhouse scene.
we knew what we were getting into when we put together this team.
So our cod piece was our bathhouse scene.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's always something.
There's always, we can just call it the bathhouse scene now. Basically.
I think now there'll be the codpiece moments.
Yeah, basically.
But yeah, it was interesting for us to kind of get a sense of where Izzy's home, like where Izzy came from, essentially. Because I love Dee Dee. I thought she's one of my favorite NPCs we've had on the show in a long time, because she's just like, oh,
Thank
that feels,
you.
well, she's like, I was like, oh, that feels like someone's mother. Like 100% their relationship immediately felt tangible.
And I can tell you as a DM, and especially because, Kelly's character, Izzy, is so very important to the show, and, being a main character, obviously, it was very nerve-wracking a little bit to portray this important character to Izzy.
Yeah.
Because, like, she's not going to be just some, like, random NPC being like, yeah, here's your adventure. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I saw that person over there. And then just walking away. Like,
I have
this-
no more quests for you at this time.
Like, this is a person that had a very direct impact on the development of Izzy's character, someone we've known for multiple seasons.
Yeah.
So it was very stressful to be like, all right, I gotta really do this character justice and hope I get it right, and not even just for the audience, just for Kelly, because I care very much that this is a character that's important to hers, and if it's a weak character or it comes across not exactly right, it's going to do disservice to Izzy's character.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing that I think that helped to set up for this whole area, though, is that the rest of the party's imagining this place to be some kind of, like, crazy, elaborate, like, almost half death trap, half not, because of the Underdark influence. And then it just ends up being this very normal place.
See, that's the thing is, I didn't even really consider what it would be like. I was just like, well, we're going to Izzy's home. Whatever that's like.
Whatever that means.
Because, like, we've heard stories of, very briefly, her stories of her mom and more stories of her dad. So we know the players, but we don't know the setting. And kind of going there and being like, oh, it's a whole commune of druids. That makes sense. We've heard some stories about that aspect, but... And then, obviously, they're peeling back the layers,
But yeah,
still not knowing much about Ron.
But even like the way that like Jeremy as Horace reacted to essentially like you knew that going in that he was expecting this place to be this like far out land that he could never expect, and then he gets there and he's like, this is not what
I can buy a cod piece here, an extendable cod piece.
These are my people. It's just like he had that kind of reaction of just like, oh, it's not some crazy place that I have to learn to adapt to because I have no knowledge of the world somehow. Then instead he just like was like, oh, this is a place I can get that thing. Cool, let's go.
And it also was the first time we've met fans. because that was a really interesting element of that adventure.
This adventure was very intentional because it was right after the giant adventure, and it was very intentional. And for anyone who just dropped in for the Seychelle adventure and don't know about the giant adventure, hop back. It's pretty fun.
Season 11, yeah.
And it'll have a huge impact on going forward. But basically, with what happened with time, and you guys lost 2 years essentially. It basically what it did was set the stage for the Velvet League has been operating been doing a lot of amazing things, and the last thing you did before you really kind of disappeared was you did free an entire town from Alaric's grasp.
Yeah.
And those people saw you and met you, and that's a whole town of people that are going to, over the course of maybe 1 month or a couple weeks, not tell that many people, but over 2 years, with all of your other deeds, Shimmer City was a pretty big one, taking down a genie, and those were all those people you freed. So
the Cal sovereignty.
Yeah, I mean,
going all the way back to season 1.
Over 2 years, those stories will make their way around the countryside and the world, so that this was an opportunity to do something really fun with what is it like now, and even and this isn't even just this just isn't even our own design. If you go into the Dungeon Master Guide, it also talks about kind of how recognizable people are based on their levels. And when you guys are in these higher levels, you are recognizable.
Well, it's you think about it, it's before the giant adventure and that 2 year gap that happened, they're making history as they go, whereas now 2 years have gone by, they've been gone, which means the legend builds, they are now history.
Yeah.
So at that point, it's as you said, no one's seen them, which then makes the mystery even grander, because then everybody's like, did you hear about these people that no one knows where they are? I mean, it's always that thing where if a person goes missing but they did great things, it's just that makes it's think of Elvis,
right,
as soon as Elvis was gone,
the great druid warrior.
Elvis, the highest druid of druids.
I guess he was a bard guy.
He's clearly a bard.
I don't know why I went straight to druid
with levels in rogue, probably.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely that type of scenario where it fits, and I'm glad the dungeon book actually addresses that, where it's not only per level, but it's just as you build the story, you got to remember they're doing all this shit. The world's not infinite in size. I mean,
if you kill a Jafar Snake Man and fight a golden dragon, maybe a doppelganger person, and free cities and towns, and it's word's gonna get around.
I definitely think actually probably if we're just talking about their story, the one that would have the most renown would probably be Shimmer City, only because that's a really big happening city.
It's probably also where our stories started blending with others of our own. People would come through Shimmer City. Yeah. Potentially. That's where it's a hub of trade and stuff.
That's what I'm trying to say is it's a crossroads.
Yes.
So then it's that's where it spreads
it does
outwards.
connect to the Shadowlands.
Whereas technically no one would know about the giant thing because that happened in the Feywild. So
it also just happened. Because remember, we came back a week ago. We disappeared for 2 years in that town.
Yeah, so when the news would have spread would have been just after that.
Relativistically, via time dilation. Yeah. Yes, it just happened, even though it. Yeah. Anyways, my point is that there's so many active other things that have happened. Even just the adventure, the first adventure with Seychelle at this essentially vacation spot.
Yep.
Where you just have random people coalesce at this point that are all from different walks of life, and then they spread out, and then they talk about this light story. Hey, we had chest bursters and Slotty, and then this happened, and these people did it. So yeah, that's pretty great that that's been built to this point where people would actually know who they are.
And I like that we have these nicknames that have sort of cropped up, like the Shapeshifter. What was their name for me? The Many-Faced.
Yeah.
And the idea
I can't even imagine why. Is it because you've had 3 different bodies?
And before that, I had a disguise kit, which I used once, I think, on the show.
Because, you have to imagine what kind of name does a person like that get where somebody was, swore that he was, a dirty, red-haired, human guy with, a beard, but someone was like, no, he was definitely... I know what a halfling looks like. That was a halfling, and someone's like, he was a beautiful elf. What are you talking about? How you're going to have
Or no, he was a filthy peasant because, magic.
Exactly.
I can do that, too. And yeah, it was just kind of we're entering a new sort of adventure format for the Velvet League, and that we have renown. We have a little bit of clout, not just Horace. Mm-hmm. And even his clout has always been a little bit... hasn't been worth as much as maybe he wants it to be.
I almost feel though, that you guys are actually giving him more now, maybe even in the future, more pull or sway within his own family, just because of the deeds.
Maybe. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I guess we will find out.
Hey, let's talk about all them slotty.
Oh yeah, the frog people.
The frog monsters who were like super dangerous and could kill us.
Yeah, if anyone thought me, who I think in the aftermath of season 5, I very much exclaimed that I love slutty. If anyone thought that I was going to stop at just red, which is red and green, like they were sorely mistaken.
They are Jay's favorite monster, and we were like, can we work a death slotty?
Yeah, there was just no
into
way.
this.
Even it was like, maybe if we downgrade his abilities, but it's like, then why are we throwing a death slotty in here?
Yeah, why use one in
anything
that
with him?
Yeah,
case?
I mean, they're a little powerful.
So when it kind of came to this right timing for like the 2 years to pass, we reset, we're going to a druid village, like Moondrop Lilies are going to be the main story, like it, and Seychelle was returning, it just like kind of made sense. Like I kind of want to bookend and finish what I want to do with Slotty, and that's kind of what we did here.
Well, I mean, I think 7 seasons is enough for, you know, it to come around full circle. Like,
Yeah.
that's enough of a gap where you can come back to Slotty and it's fine.
Yeah, I love those frog monsters.
And they also, since they're the essence of chaos, they work really nicely as the antithesis of nature and druids and sort of, you know,
they're the other side of that coin,
of
basically.
harmony. Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
yeah, because the limbo where they come from doesn't have substance, really. So, like, whereas the druids are literally, like, prophets of the substance of the world. I mean, yeah, that's definitely, as you said, like an antithesis to what they are.
And it's also like a little bit of kind of, you know, the other side of the same coin where you have Izzy and how that druid lifestyle is a bit like natural chaos. Like it's more like chaos, but for like nature. Like nature isn't one thing; it can be many things.
It's
it
wild,
can change
but-
and wild. But
where
like,
the wind blows type of situation.
While Sladi are like they're like that to like the nth degree, essentially.
Yeah. Whereas she is the harmony with nature, Sladi are this force that overwrites the world around them.
They so much disrupt it and change it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not willing to accept nature as it is. They must control it all.
Which is why we started swimming through stone.
Yeah, wasn't that fun?
It was weird.
I really thought they were gonna die at that point.
Yeah, there was a very
I
real chance
really
you guys
thought
were just
they were
going to
gonna
fall
die.
into the earth that was black rock water.
It looked bad.
Yeah.
It didn't look good for us.
I was like, that was a good rescue moment for Horace.
For Horace, yeah.
Pulling you guys out. I was like, oh god, they keep failing those checks. Are they really gonna drown? They're deep down now.
Yeah.
Well, you can hold your breath for a little while.
You can.
But if you just keep sinking,
If you keep sinking and you don't know, and here's the other thing, you would have to start to make survival checks to know which way is up and where
Yeah.
you are and
Yeah.
how far you sunk because you can't see. So
no, you
Yeah.
can't. Opening your eyes certainly doesn't help.
also, at what point does the limbo stop and you just become stuck in stone deep underwater again?
Yeah. I don't know, but I would imagine it was not that many rolls away.
Nope, not that far.
But yeah, I mean, like, just that whole environment. And I loved when they actually get to the gate and they kept doing investigation checks. Like, the apprehension of, like, do we have to cross that threshold? Can we find out everything about this threshold? It's just a doorway. Just step through. It's fine.
Just a golden doorway.
It's totally cool.
And then we walked into a monastery in another dimension.
Well, no. It's a monastery that is essentially invading the dimension. So what is invading the dimension? Because I do know at the end of the adventure, like, a lot of stuff was conveyed very quickly, and you guys fought some very dangerous stuff.
That's true.
But really what that was Pharaoh and her minions, essentially, were invading the material plane and bringing the stone with them. Basically bringing this is the, you know, the spawning stone is essentially the core power of Sladi.
Yeah.
And it was created by Primus.
Yes.
A god to create order in chaos, and instead
It backfired.
It did certain things, so it allowed order to be done in Limbo, but it also spawned Slutty, which was a really bad after, you know, and Primus was just like, whatever. And the Slutty, like, destroyed all of the Modrons in Limbo, and
it's that whole balance thing.
got
you
real
know?
bad. And basically, the spawning stone allows order. It basically, the idea there was Pharaoh's bringing the stone into the material plane, which causes Limbo to flow out. But then Pharaoh, who is trained, can manipulate the material world like Limbo and can shape it to make it whatever she wants.
Yeah, so
basically, essentially becoming a god in the material plane.
They still were in the material plane, but think of it as like a coalescing hub where it allows them to bend the rules enough. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you weren't ever going to be trapped in Limbo. Like,
no, it's Limbo is basically bleeding into the material world.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Super good. Super great for the world, I bet.
No, yeah. So good. So good for everyone.
The best.
So Jay, you and I have talked about this a bit off mic.
Have we?
Pharaoh,
Yes.
you felt that there was more to Pharaoh than we got to experience.
Yes.
I mean, I guess there was clearly more because that there was more. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I guess because it's so many times when we put these adventures together, we all talk and we try to come up with, compelling villains. And I myself am very big on having a strong, interesting villain because it gives a bigger challenge to protagonists, give better arcs to protagonists. And I was just like, all right, we're going to do Slot E. It's going to be a death. Slot E is going to be the final boss because, of course. But, like, just death Slot E? Like, could we do something cooler with this?
Can we actually stop? Was that a death slotty?
Yes, that was a death slotty.
That was a death slotty, yes.
So that character, Pharaoh, was a creature of our own design, basically.
Got it, okay.
It was a mix between a Githzeri and a death slotty.
Yes.
Basically, the strengths of both.
No good.
Yeah. And basically, this was actually Pharaoh's character is a very tragic villain. Now, because we have codpiece scenes, there isn't too much time to flesh out Pharaoh's story. And really, like, the design of the adventure didn't really give her much room to be like, let me tell you about myself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we asked her questions.
You
and
did.
she answered questions, but we just didn't ask, like, so where you from and what's your past story?
Tell us your backstory, Pharaoh.
Yeah, we were more focused on the moondrop lilies and all that stuff.
Yeah, and if we wanted to have, like, background around the villain, it wouldn't be, like, the very end of an adventure where it's like, destroy that rock and punch that person who's trying to stop us from destroying that rock.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yes, mistakes were made in how villain was introduced, and probably could have been done so over a longer period of time.
Well, but hindsight
is 2020.
But all that to say that she's not a villain we'll be seeing again, so we might as well just
talk about her. Yeah. So the idea behind Pharaoh was essentially she is a death slotty, a very powerful death slotty, but when she was spawned from the spawning stone, well, actually death slotty go through different ways of becoming them. They're not spawned. But anyways, whenever she became a death slotty, she was different because she hated her kind. She absolutely hated Slotty, and she was repulsed by her own self. And she, swimming through limbo, found her way to a Githzeri temple. And Githzeri are really neat. They're the cousins, brothers, sisters of Githyanki, which you guys have encountered in the astral plane.
Oh, yes, I know.
Githyanki, remember the guys fought that entire city of Githyanki?
I remember.
And died?
I remember everything up to the end of the fight. I don't remember how it ended. I just remember we got where we ever wanted to go.
The Githzeri and Githyanki are basically separated twin civilizations that were once one. Horrible thing happened with mind flayers that destroyed their society, and then they split.
Goddamn mind flayers.
Githyanki became kind of these, like, space pirates, essentially, is what they are.
Sky pirates, yeah.
Sky pirates. And Githzeri became more like reclusive monks that would live in limbo, and they figured out that through the power of their mind, they could manipulate limbo and just make, essentially, a paradise for themselves. They could build monasteries out of their mind and train others to do so as well.
Both versions of the race are very powerful psychic.
Yes, very powerful psychically, and that's why the mind flayers were so interested in them in the first place, or they did experiments on them. And basically, how the story for Pharaoh is that she comes across a monastery and basically, kind of wants to be like them, wishes she was not this, she likes order. She wants to craft plans and things and not just be chaos at all times.
Very unlike a slotty.
So the Githzeri, bring her in and, like, almost very much like against their best judgment, decide, we will kind of take upon this experiment and train a death slotty, a slotty at all, in the arts of the Githzeri. And Pharaoh becomes very powerful and very well respected, and can, because she is Githzeri, under their tutelage, actually, because she is death slotty, she can change her facial features anyway, just like the gray one you guys fought can shapeshift. So she chooses the form of Githzeri because she hates slutty. She hates that she is one. And she basically, tragically, kind of throws away her heritage and just wants to be Githzeri, and unfortunately, because of her nature, in one point kills her master at a certain point, and decides, screw all of this, I'm done living in this horrible chaos place, like, I'm going to the material plane, and that's what she does. Basically, pretty easy way to be a god in the material plane is if you can bring the thing that makes you a god there, which would be the spawning stone. So, yeah, that's Pharaoh. She tried to come to the material plane to be a god, and also hated her own kind, so that's why when you were fighting her, she took the form of Githzeri until she was just about to die.
Yeah.
And then her focus was obviously on killing you guys, and broke her concentration and therefore revealing her true form.
Now, can you talk a little bit about, we've talked about adapting monsters before a couple of times, but this is probably the most direct, like, creating a monster, like, not just like, okay, we have a chimera, we're just going to take off one of the heads.
Yeah, and
or
just make
here's a Cambion, here's a power he's not going to use. Maybe he'll use it anyway.
Maybe he's going to
Maybe I'll make it way worse. But this is probably
somebody
the one.
almost got zapped away.
Yep. In season 1.
Season 1.
But this is probably the first one that I can think of where you've taken two monsters, bled them together, and started really just making up your own.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's happened a couple times before.
But not to this extent, though.
Yeah, I mean, well, I would say that this was the first time there was a creature that was crafted around the story, as opposed to, like, there was a creature that was just fitted into the story.
But we've never, like, chimera'd, besides the chimera, we've never chimera'd a, like, creature out of, like, two separate creatures.
I mean, like,
we've slightly adjusted, like, stat points and been like, you might have this power instead, but this was, like, a completely different reworking
It was a straight up
of the creature.
homebrew monster.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
I'll
going to
agree to
take
that.
half the pieces of this, half the pieces of that, and blend it together, which allowed me to create a really nasty end boss.
Yeah, that was a rough fight. That was scary.
all
like,
that
all
ignorance and everything.
Yeah,
just
all
like,
of the damage power of a Githzeri and, like, psychic damage with the brutal strength and durability of a Death Slotty and magic all rolled up into one.
Yeah. What advice do you have for DMs who want to sort of start experimenting and blending monsters together, Frankenstein style?
I think,
I
honestly,
guess that's more Island of Dr. Moreau.
either way.
Go ahead.
But I think if you're going to do it, I think the first thing to do really is most important is what kind of monster are you going for? What's the theme?
Yeah.
So with Pharaoh, we kind of worked backwards. It was, I really like the idea of a Death Slotty that hates itself for being a Death Slotty and makes it a bit more tragic. And what's another thing in Limbo? Because obviously this is very Limbo-centric. Githzeri, we might as well bookend the Gith kind of, we already met Githyanki, we can meet Githzeri now, and mix those together. And then from there, it was just as simple as working backwards. Like, when she fights in this form, she's Githzeri. She has a bit of the power of a Death Slotty, but mostly is focused on combat. And then make it more narrative. When they change, or if they do change, or wherever the different parts of the monster bleed into the fight, make it more narrative.
Well, yeah,
and less mechanical.
I definitely think the thematics at all costs. Like, anytime that you can make it work more for the story, then, like, even if it makes something weaker, if you give it abilities that, like, really help story progression, then that's going to help you for a chimera'd monster in any way.
And it makes, there's the classic trope. I mean, Frankenstein is a perfect example of it, of a monster that just feels guilt for being itself. And when you have these tragic creatures like that, a prince who's actually a lich but hates the undead, but they're the only things that listen to him and can talk to him, things like that. Like, there's something fun and interesting there. There's also something fun of just a person being like, I'll destroy all of you.
Right.
That's fun too.
Yeah.
But, like, if you do want to go for kind of a hybrid villain and give it a little bit extra flavor, I recommend working from theme and then going from there.
Nice. And then just go into the mechanics and trust that they're going to support you. Or TPK. That's
or TPK the team.
one way or another.
I mean, when it comes down to it, it is a dice game, which means that you could be planning for everything, and then they just roll straight ones, and then that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, I mean, I was happy to see that you guys were legitimately, like, we very rarely on the show see you guys actually get, like, oh god, like, we could really die here, especially when we've had you come back twice.
Yeah.
It was very, actually interesting to see you guys show real fear on the show.
I would argue that we showed very real fear every time I died, because...
Sure. Oh, I mean, not to undercut that in any way, but
I mean, like, it's not as
after
much
you
my...
dying twice.
Yes.
And where we are now, like, even, I think earlier in the same adventure, like, Izzy had a moment where it was like, oh, it's whatever, we're gonna kill these things, it'll be fine. Like, this happens to us all the time. But, like, going from that to a moment where it was like, wow, we could all legitimately die right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it got scary, even though I wasn't at nearly as low health as I have been in other seasons.
True.
Especially those two where I died.
You mean where you went the lowest you can go?
Yeah, all the way down, baby. Even though I didn't get that low, I was still watching Horace get just wrecked, and it's just like, this could be a bad fight.
I find that's interesting that, like, the two adventures that really stand out to me where Horace got pretty messed up were both Seychelle Gabriel. She was in season 5 is when the first time he ever went unconscious was when he was fighting the skeleton minotaurs.
Yeah.
And then now again,
I think the only time he's ever gone unconscious.
Yeah.
Still, yeah.
and now this time where he almost went unconscious fighting the Zereni Pharaoh.
Well, seasons 9 and 10, he was both at single-digit hit points too.
Right.
And if you're going out of like 90 or 100, whatever his max is, that's a lot of
Oh,
fighting.
that's right. He was at 1 hit
He was
point.
at 1 hit point. That's what I mean about season 10. It wasn't just that I was dead and he had 1 hit point. It was that then they were tumbling through the sky. Guys, listen to season 10 if you haven't already. Like, that was genuinely like, oh, we can't roll above a 10, which is all we need to not be dead right now. And that was like genuinely like, this could go very badly real fast.
Yeah. A lot of fun, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, great radio, certainly.
I mean, anytime that you can put severe danger towards the tank, and he is the tank. I mean, that's just when it comes to it. If your tank's about to die, you know that it may be time to run. It may be time to just tuck tail and get the hell out of there.
And we're getting to the point where the monsters we're fighting are smart more often than they're not.
They're no longer going to be like, oh, that spellcaster back there is hitting me with all this terrible magic. I'll just stay over here and fight the unkillable tank.
Yeah, exactly. Like they can start prioritizing and be like, okay, you 3 fight the tank, and us 3 fight the druid, and you 2 fight the spellcaster.
See, this is how I've seen the progression get with the level you guys are now. You guys were fighting villains before. Now you're fighting supervillains. Where
Yeah,
you've gotten to the
that's true.
point where it's like they have legitimate plans for Armageddon, and as opposed to just like bad things in a bad area. You just run into bosses.
Or at least domination, certainly, yeah, in some cases.
And you have to imagine they've killed adventurers before. Like, this probably isn't the first time they've fought a spellcaster or a druid or a fighter. Like, they've dealt with people like this before and clearly have won. So
I think the big change to that is Tom in season 7, because he's the first one who shows up and he's like, oh, this is probably someone who's killed adventurers, like, professionally.
yeah, he's been very experienced at it before. Now, he didn't expect to get, it wasn't him, but he didn't expect his friend to get turned into a bunny and dropped into the ocean. But,
He didn't expect to get Velvet League.
Yeah. Now, new experiences for everyone, but I guess he did get his revenge in at the end of the day.
We didn't expect to get Velvet League.
where we do something, we think it's going to be okay, and it comes back to kill us several seasons later.
I don't think we did that this season. I think we cleaned.
That's true.
I think we tied up all the loose ends.
You guys did. You guys did clean up maybe all the loose ends. What? Don't worry about it.
I mean, they totally,
Everything's fine.
it closed it off. It's fine.
All right, well, guys, that's our Aftermath episode. We'll see you guys next week for not season 13, but a special bonus adventure.
Bonus adventure.
More on that in a moment.
Woo!
Goodbye and stuff!
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. As we've alluded, the Velvet League won't be returning next week. They're going on a bit of a hiatus. Schedules didn't exactly line up to get a season in for October. However, friend of the show Daniel Fernandez, who appeared on Friday Night Quest as Stu the Maniac, has agreed to run a spooky Halloween-themed adventure for a few of us. Next week, you'll be able to hear part 1 of that game featuring myself and Mike Christensen, who, amazingly, we've never actually been players in the same game of D&D together, so this is a first for us, as well as we'll be joined by our friends Jeffrey Gardner and Sandra Frame, who play D&D with us all the time outside of Friday Night Quests, and this is just tons of fun for us to be able to take our outside games and be able to bring it on the air for you guys. So we hope you come back and join us for that, because we had a fantastic time recording it, and it is quite the spooky adventure. Photos and character art can be found in the show notes on partialarc.com. And while you're there, why not check out some of our other podcasts, including Because Comics, where Mike Christensen and I talk about the weird and wacky stories of comic books. If you have any questions about the show, you can email us at FridayNightQuests@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr, all under the handle Partial Arc. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the battlefield.
Yeah, I'm gonna loot the body.
So, how much experience do we get?
Well, now we have a skeleton army, so that's pretty neat.